Okay, if I cut it like this, I think this will work. Whoop. Hey, Pop Kids. Hey, hang on. Hey, happy Valentine's Day, Valentine's Week. You know, Valentine's Day is always a really great day to think about people that we know, family members, friends that we care a lot about and even love. So I want you to do something with me, okay? I want you to bring to mind 3 or 4 of your closest friends right now. Just maybe close your eyes and bring to mind 3 or 4 of your closest friends. Just bring those friends into where you are and imagine that you're all together, maybe playing a game outside or maybe inside drinking some hot chocolate or something. You're together. Now I want you to think of your closest friend. If the other 2 weren't there, who would be with you among those 3? And I want you to think about what it is about that one friend that makes him or her so very special to you. They care about you? Are they kind and helpful to you? Do they love you at all times, no matter what? Do they treat you the way that you wish to be treated? Do they keep their promises? Well, this week we're thinking about friends forever and what it means to have a friendship in our life that's so very important. I'm going to tell you a story about an amazing friendship between 2 kids who grew up together and went through a lot of stuff together. Jonathan and David. This is really an ancient story from the Old Testament, what we also call the Hebrew Bible. In 1 Samuel chapters 19 and 20 and in 2 Samuel chapter 9. Anyway, here it is. This is David. Maybe you've heard about him before. He's kind of famous in the Bible. Here's a couple of hints. He was a shepherd boy, and because he was always protecting his sheep from predators like lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and wolves. Well, not that wolf, but snarly wolves. David got really good with a slingshot. He could pick up any stone and hit anything at any distance with that slingshot, including a giant by the name of, say it with me now, Goliath. Well, this is Jonathan. Jonathan was the son of King Saul, and Jonathan was known for his courage, his loyalty, his bravery. He was a mighty warrior in his own right. And from an early age, Jonathan and David were best buddies. They went everywhere and did everything together. Now here's where things get a little gnarly. We have to remember that while Jonathan and David were growing up, Jonathan's father, Saul, was the king of Israel. And when David killed Goliath, everyone went rather bonkers. Everyone was super stoked that this young kid, David, had won that battle with Goliath. It was like the same kid that protected his sheep from predators like lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and wolves. Well, not those wolves, but snarly wolves. He was protecting people from the danger all around them. And that's the kind of thing a king was supposed to do. So that was a really big deal. Everyone was talking about David and what a brave and courageous young man he was, and what a great shot he was with that slingshot. So he was getting a lot of really good press, you could say. If he'd had a social media account, pretty sure it would have been blowing up and breaking the internet. But they didn't have an internet. Anyway. But Jonathan's dad, King Saul, started to get really jealous. He was beginning to worry that David would end up taking his spot as a king. Can you imagine? I mean, how nervous Nelly is that? You might have thought that Jonathan would have been the one to be jealous. After all, since his father was the king, Jonathan would have been the next in line for the throne. But instead of being jealous or even bitter toward David, Jonathan just kept being a great friend. It was almost like he knew this week's bottom line. Friends keep their promises, and they had a promise to be friends. In fact, Saul became so jealous that there are a few times when he tried to hurt and even kill David. But every time, Jonathan protected his friend, even when it might have been really dangerous for him to do so. So when David began to realize that King Saul wanted to kill him, he shared this with Jonathan. But Jonathan assured David that his father would have told him if he was planning to kill him. But David was still afraid and thought that, he should get out of sight. He should lay low, hide from King Saul. It wasn't long after that King Saul decided to plan a feast in his palace and invite a lot of people. He also invited David, Jonathan's friend. David knew that his life might be in danger, so he took off and hid in the countryside. He and Jonathan agreed that if Saul asked where David was, Jonathan would tell him that he went home to be with his family. Now pay attention, because Jonathan had to pay attention to this. If Saul became angry about David missing that feast, Jonathan and David would know that it was a plot to kill David at the feast. Jonathan told David that he would go to the feast to see his father's reaction and then give David a signal. The signal would alert David as to whether it was safe to come out of hiding or not. Jonathan would shoot 3 arrows. If the arrows landed close to where David was hiding, then he would know that it was safe to come out. But if the arrows flew way past where he was hiding, that meant that David needed to leave because Saul did want to end his life. At the feast, King Saul took a seat with Jonathan next to him, but David's seat was empty. Saul asked Jonathan where David was, and Jonathan told him that he had to be with his family and go home. Well, King Saul became really angry and even accused Jonathan of helping David. Jonathan realized that it was not safe for David to stay where he was, so he went to the countryside and shot the arrows way beyond where David was hiding as a sure sign that Saul had planned to kill him. Well, here's the point of all this. David and Jonathan, these best friends who had been through so much together, knew what it was like to be friends forever. Like our bottom line for today, they knew that friends keep their promises. In Proverbs 17:17, we read these words, "A friend loves at all times. They are there to help when trouble comes." Now, this story is a hard story to read. The things that Saul was doing were very evil. And when people threaten other people, it's important to get help and to make sure that everyone is safe. But think about those friends I asked you to bring to mind when we started. The ones you're having hot chocolate with. Being true friends means protecting and speaking well of them. That's true friendship, using your words and actions to show others that you care. Our basic truth is this: I should treat others the way I want to be treated. We might be thinking, this is the end of the story, but it's not. There's one more big moment in this story about friendship. David and Jonathan got together one last time to say goodbye. David thanked Jonathan for helping him, for standing with him, for being a true, loyal, faithful, and committed friend that they could always count on. Well, both of these guys were sad because they weren't sure that they'd ever see each other again. Before David left, the two promised to each other to always be there for each other, no matter what. David moved on and got out of Saul's way, and Jonathan went back to the city. But David always remembered his friend Jonathan. And when David grew up and became the greatest king ever of Israel, he helped Jonathan's family and took great care of his whole family. In fact, years and years later, Jonathan's son Mephibosheth, in 2 Samuel 9, well, here's how the story ends. David looked at Jonathan's son Mephibosheth and said, "Don't be frightened. I'd like to do something special for you in memory of your father Jonathan. To begin with, I'm returning you to all the property of your grandfather Saul. And furthermore, from now on, you're going to eat all of your meals at my table." Well, It's a great story of friendship that stood the test of time. And my hope is that you can find friends like that, friends who care about you, who are kind and helpful to you, who love you at all times, no matter what. Friends who treat you the way that you want to be treated. My hope is that you'll be the kind of friend who always keeps promises, the kind of friend who can be friends forever. So I'm going to get back to this. Let's see. I'm thinking about hot chocolate. I'm thinking about just being together with some friends of mine. And let's see. Wow. Take a look at this. Wow. Friends are friends forever. Thanks, Pop Kids. Have a great day.